Welcome in, everybody, to the latest episode of Director's Cut. I'm Jackson Kinney alongside my co-director at IUSTV Sports, Frey, as always. And, there's not really much putting around we can do to get right into what we've talked about every week, regardless of the
Pretty
topic.
much.
Is Major League Baseball is shooting itself in the foot once again. Drew,
Yeah.
would you like to tell everybody, if they haven't heard already, what Rob Manfred said?
Yeah. So MLB commissioner Rob Manfred went on ESPN. They're one of their specials where they're talking about their ability, just all of these leagues commissioners' abilities to try and return. And Manfred basically backtracked on his comments from a week ago when he said he was 100% certain that there will be Major League Baseball played this year. And now he's saying with no dialogue, there is a chance he's less confident, is what he said, that MLB will have their season. It's at the point. I mean, it's one of those things. As millionaires arguing with billionaires, it's all money. We can keep rehashing. Baseball had the prime opportunity to be the league that returned to sports. And I saw an article earlier today that said baseball law in the past has lost millennials. Baseball in this past few seasons is losing families, and now baseball is at risk of losing the one thing they had left, which is the diehard fans. And I think that's becoming a real threat. Now, to say if baseball returns in a year, there definitely the diehard fans will come back.
Right.
But I've just seen a lot of that sort of mindset at this point where it's just like, whatever, move on. You know, baseball had its shot, and people don't care, and it's becoming it's just becoming like painful at this point, you know. And
It is.
It's annoying.
And this has absolved, in my eyes, the players of any wrongdoing, because they are coming out and saying, tell us when and where. They have given up on negotiations, and now they're saying, tell us when and where. And then the league says, okay, but you have to waive all liability. They have to sign a liability waiver and get rid of all their legal protections. And just, what? Why?
That's a big one too. And I'll tell you the reason why. It's because the league knows that the players will file a grievance and most likely will win it. The players are in a position right now to where they can win their grievance. So MLB is now trying to push that off and try and get that out of their system, because the owners know that they don't want to lose this grievance. So if they can get the players, they can incorporate that into negotiations to get the players to sign away their rights, then they won't lose that even more. But it's at the point where just MLB's PR department, I can't blame obviously that department singularly, but like they had such an opportunity, and to just completely blow it. It seemed one of the things MLB was trying to work its way back up. You know, it used to be the number one sport. It was America's sport in the United States. That's what people cared about. And over the past, I don't even know how many years, the NBA and NFL, basketball and football, have really just sort of overlapped it. And
The
hockey's
NBA
coming on
has
strong too.
squeaked by baseball. The NFL has blown by baseball.
Exactly.
For me, at least. Well, not
And
for
we're
me,
at the
because
point now where baseball is trying to stave off hockey and maybe even soccer to a lesser extent, as soccer's been growing, and I think soccer will pass hockey in the next few years anyways. But yeah, the way baseball, a year and a half ago, I was saying they're doing well. They're trying to get back to the point where they can contend with basketball and football. And now they're at the point where I think they are just falling off a cliff, losing significant ground to hockey and soccer and whatever other sports just even want to try can just blow by baseball at this point.
It's ridiculous. All you have to do, the bar is set so low for every league to have better publicity than the Major League Baseball right now.
It is.
I mean, it's so easy to make yourself look better than them, because it's insane. It's actually insane how bad the MLB is right now.
Yeah, and I mean, plenty of other sports have had their scandals and their issues, and I know we're going to talk about football today and through this show, and they've had all sorts of social activism. They've been sort of caught on the right and the wrong side of it, depending on which stance you're taking on which issue. They've struggled with CTE, and now they're trying to work on racial activism, and we'll see how that goes. Right now, it's looking like the league might be playing without fans, at least for the first several games, first several weeks. But they're going to get their training camp started. They're at least putting forth, a good faith effort.
Right. So far, they've done everything, like you said, the best they can. They are, and their season doesn't start for another few months, and they don't have to worry about training camps for another few months. I mean, they're pretty set right now as far as things go there, and having a set schedule. And it's not like they have a labor dispute coming up, so they're not worried about that if anything does happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, the main topic of today's show is football, and we're gonna try to keep it football from here on out. There's been enough talk of the league that shouldn't be named anymore, but
I'm sure we'll continue it
today. Before we bring on our guest, who is one of our football beat reporters at IUSTV, I almost said men's football beat reporters.
Yeah,
it is, but at the same time, like. But anyway, it's Haley Jordan, one of our best reporters, and probably one of the biggest football fans I know.
Yeah.
I know you and her have a pretty big debate that'll be coming up between Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I don't know why I agreed to argue against her, but I feel like I'm putting myself at a disadvantage just with the amount she knows about football, but I'm looking forward to it.
I mean, not many people know as much as her. It's really impressive. But before we get into that, I do just want to mention today, EA put out the Madden 21 trailer, which normally wouldn't be huge news to me because I haven't bought Madden in years. But like the very first player they highlighted in it is Joe Burrow, and as a Cincinnati fan, it's very nice to see. And that's pretty much been all I've got with the NFL in years as a fan is Joe Burrow being the Bengals' #1 pick.
Yeah, and we're seeing this a lot with sports trying to emphasize, their young and up-and-coming stars because NBA 2K, I don't remember if it's their cover athlete, but one of the guys they're emphasizing the most is Zion.
Right.
And he still hadn't played, a full season yet. Barely played, actually, because he missed, like, the first half with injuries, and then the second half everyone's missed.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about because they released a trailer at, like, the PlayStation 5 release or, like, preview party, and it was just Zion in a gym by himself with a bunch of shots. It was kind of strange. But, yeah, like you said, they're pushing all these young stars. I don't know if Madden 21 has a cover athlete yet. And if it does...
Was it not Lamar Jackson?
It might be Lamar Jackson. I might just be dumb. But I'll figure that out. It probably is Lamar Jackson because he's all over their Twitter page. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely Lamar. So, congrats on that.
There we go. 1 point already, and we haven't introduced Haley yet. So,
right.
I'll take it.
But what we will be talking about, the main meat of Haley coming on will be maybe Colin Kaepernick gets a job soon. The NFL's return along with that. The Texans and the Cowboys have announced players with positive COVID tests. One of those being Ezekiel Elliott. We'll go over the top rookies to look out for. I already brought up my guy, Joe Burrow. And then obviously normally on a normal show, the movies would be like the thing I'm ready to get to, but I'm ready to moderate this debate between you and Haley. I'm really excited for that. But yeah, so we'll get Haley on here in a couple minutes. We'll dive into the show and stay tuned. It'll be a good time. Welcome back, everybody, to Director's Cut. We have our guest on, Haley Jordan. Haley, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys.
And we said it before, but she's one of the biggest football fans, knows a lot about the sport, and one of our IUSTV football beat reporters this upcoming fall. And I guess we'll just get right into it with the NFL coming back with a normal schedule on September 10th. and then that playing along with the news of Ezekiel Elliott and a bunch of Cowboys and Texans testing positive, what could the return look like, and could more positive test results, this could be for either of you, due to the return plans?
Well, so far, this coronavirus, I think people are just excited to hear that there's talk of a season that's going to happen. A lot of articles that I've been reading, they're saying the upcoming, 2020 season, and they'll put in parentheses, hopefully. I read an article that said that this morning, and I was like, well, I guess that is still up in the air. But to my understanding, facilities are going to start opening up in July, and players are going to be tested anywhere from 3 times a week. And if one player tests positive, they are booting that player out and putting them in quarantine. And honestly, I think that is the smartest decision, because as we all know with sports, one player gets it, it's going to spread like wildfire.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what happens, because I feel like it's almost inevitable that players are going to end up, contracting the virus. But this isn't something that it could be like, I mean, sometimes you just know if you sign a player, they're injury prone. It might happen. They get hit hard. Aaron Rodgers' collarbone is good to break at least twice a year. So I would understand that. But it could be interesting when something like this virus just starts plucking people off at random, and how teams are able to respond. Because what would happen to the Saints if Drew Brees is out for, 3 weeks? And what would happen, maybe there's a whole, spread of the virus. It gets into the locker room of the Buccaneers, and their entire defense is basically second stringers. So it'll be interesting to see how teams are reacting. And I think what Haley said makes the most sense. You just sort of take it on a case-by-case basis. But this is going to be something that ends up being so random that it could affect teams. It could be like a really bad injury bug.
Right, and that really could be it. Like Hayes said, once it gets on the team, it spreads really quickly. We saw that in the NBA with Rudy Gobert and a ton of NBA players who ended up contracting it, like Donovan Mitchell. But with the sport coming back, I want to talk about something that is really taken over the country in the past couple of weeks, with all of the Black Lives Matter movements and protests, is with the NFL saying something now and the players coming out, is Colin Kaepernick has a route back to the league. And what would that look like for him? Could he, because I'm seeing him project as a backup for most teams at this point, but what could that look like if Colin Kaepernick does get another shot in the league?
Go ahead, Drew. You go first.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, yeah, I definitely think he's gonna be a backup. I don't know. They're walking on a thin line. I think the issue before was no team wanted to be the team to grab him for the attention, and I'm wondering if there might be some teams that sort of take it the other way, is grabbing him. It definitely will draw the attention, whether he wants it to or not. Signing him is going to be based on attention. And I don't know. We don't know for sure how good he'll be when he comes back, how effective he'll be as a quarterback. And it puts whatever team signs him in a difficult position, because if he turns out he is NFL ready, then it sort of proves that the league was blackballing him. They're dragging their feet solely for the issue. But at the same time, it's sort of a better late than never approach. If this guy was wrongfully, not allowed to be on another NFL team. I mean, it's wrongful for him to not be allowed, but like if he was wrongfully left as a free agent, it'll be interesting to see when he comes back. I really want to see what his effectiveness will be like, and then what the response is following that.
If you see some of his old footage from the 49ers way back when he played, he's incredible. He's an incredible athlete. And not only would teams, if they got him, they would get a lot of media attention and probably a lot of fans, honestly, especially given what's going on today. But he's good. He's really good. Like, he's not just some guy who started a movement. Like, he's a really good athlete. And I've heard some talk about the Ravens have been considering him. And the connection there is he has ties with Greg Roman, who's the offensive coordinator, who's been working with Lamar Jackson. So could you imagine if Kaepernick makes a comeback into the league? He's working under Roman, who created Lamar Jackson, who's a complete star. What better entrance into the NFL. And of course, I'm just talking here. Who knows, what team's going to pick him up. But I think that, like, what better way to have a break, come back into the NFL, and be under the best of the best.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's a really great point. I think Baltimore would be a great fit for him because then Baltimore doesn't have just one quarterback with legs who can run like the wind. They have another highly mobile quarterback.
Yeah.
And one of the things that stands out about Kaepernick for me as a player is in his last full season, he had an average QBR that ranked over half of the other players at all who got starts at quarterback. And then he had the lowest interception percentage as well. So he just was not throwing picks at all and was pretty reliable when it came to the passing game too. So, I mean, there's a lot of places you go. I think once you lay out the case for Baltimore, Haley, I don't see a much better spot for him. And I think that's where I'd want him to go if I was Baltimore. But he definitely has what it takes to be in the league. He's a really good quarterback.
And if I remember right, I think I heard ties to Seattle as well. And I think one of the arguments that was sort of used was, oh, he's a system quarterback and we don't have a system set. Well, Seattle does. Seattle's got Russell Wilson. They've had him for years. Seattle has the system for him to be in. So I'd be interested to see, I think, in Baltimore, same way, having very mobile quarterbacks. So I think, going on either coast, I think it could be very interesting to see what he's able to do if he does return.
Right, and you mentioned system quarterback, which I used to be the biggest Tom Brady hater. I'm gonna out myself here and call him a system quarterback. But then as I grew up, it was like every quarterback's really a system quarterback because it's whatever the coordinator tells them. Very few can play in any system and be successful. So once again, I don't think system quarterback is really a valid argument in my mind anymore.
Systems are built around quarterbacks anyways.
Right. And I guess moving along to Tom Brady as we get into the season upcoming and look amongst the league in a wider picture. Today, the Buccaneers tweeted the first pictures of Tom Brady in his Tampa Bay uniform, which really took me by surprise. But how do you think he'll transition into that team?
With Gronk, oh my gosh, I'm not a Tom Brady fan. And I think it's just because he was with the Patriots organization for so long. And then maybe I started realizing, well, maybe I am a Tom Brady fan. Maybe I just wasn't a Patriots fan. But I'm very curious to see how that duo is going to do. Well, for one, Tom Brady on anybody's top 10 quarterback list is not number one. That's Mahomes. Tom Brady's at 8 right now, according to CBS Sports, which I just want to throw that out there so you gentlemen can cut me off. He's 8th right now. And if you give him Gronk, which he has, and he has more movable players, oh my gosh, I think the Patriots are going to watch him and be like, what have we done? What have we done? And also, who's going to be the quarterback for the Patriots? Brian Hoyer? Who knows?
Yeah, for the Patriots, that's kind of a hole they have to fill because they don't really have anything going for him. But you mentioned he has Gronk there in Tampa, his always faithful tight end. And at wide receiver, he's got Mike Evans too, which is a huge asset to have. And Drew, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be sort of a happy medium type situation. I know a lot of people are just expecting him to sort of build up the Bucs the same way that the Patriots were built up, and I don't think it's going to be the same sort of thing. I don't think he's going to make a run to the Super Bowl. I could definitely see the playoffs out of it. It is a very good team and a very improved team, but this is Brady in my opinion, on his last legs, which he's still elite. I've never hated Brady. I've never really had a reason to. I'm sort of new into the whole like football dynamic. I don't have a team that I've like latch onto for the most part. So like I respect his talent and he's incredible. And adding Gronk is going to be fun. It's going to be such a fun system to watch. But this is Gronk who has dealt with, CTE issues in the past, and he's taken a year off of football. I think he's going to go out there. He's going to have a great time. I don't know if he's going to win another Super Bowl. At the same time, good team still. And Brady throwing to Mike Evans is going to be similar, if not better, than Brady to Edelman.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, he doesn't have the Patriots defense backing him up.
True.
That's a good point.
I know they're trying to shore the offensive line up a bit down in Tampa, but I don't think it's going to be that same sort of system. So I think the Buccaneers will definitely be better than they were last season, and they will take a jump. I don't see them as a threat once it comes down to like the final run of playoffs.
Right, because you look at that division they're in alongside Matt Ryan and the Falcons, Drew Brees and the Saints, and then Teddy Bridgewater and the Panthers, I believe. It's definitely going to be a hard division to succeed in. Also, just one last thing on the Buccaneers I want to mention. They might have the deepest tight end position with Gronkowski and O.J. Howard. I don't know if you can count Gronkowski as a top 10 since he missed a year. He has to reestablish himself. But O.J. Howard's definitely up around that category. So two really good tight ends there. And then moving forward I want to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. And nobody better to talk about them than with you, Haley. Coming off the Super Bowl, what do you think they can do defending their title this year? And can they make it back to the Lombardi Trophy?
I think so. Yeah. I've been doing some early research and just keeping an eye on their franchise. And they honestly haven't been doing as much work during this offseason as some teams. A couple of people have been vocally complaining about how they feel like the Chiefs haven't worked as hard as the Ravens. I don't know how true that is, but I do know they have great people coming in on their team. And Mahomes, he is on everybody's top 10 list. I just checked the updated list today. He's number one on top 10 quarterbacks. And he's also number one for teams predicted to do the best in the league. Number one of 32. And I feel like at this point, it's no contest. I've even done a couple polls on Instagram, like who's the best quarterback in the league? Plain and simple. And a lot of people, you'll still get Brady's running around in there, maybe a Lamar Jackson or two, but everybody says Mahomes. Everybody does. And he's still young. He's in his prime. Last season, averaged 4,564 yards, 38 touchdowns, only 8.5 interceptions. Only 8.5 average.
I mean, once again, and Drew, I know we'll get to the debate later, but it's pretty hard to beat from any quarterback, especially Lamar Jackson, who was awarded the MVP last year to much controversy. I want
to point out the controversy.
Okay.
Patrick Mahomes is elite, one of the best quarterbacks, hands down. I put him at number 2, and I know we'll jump into this later. But I don't know what the controversy was for only the second unanimous MVP in history.
Well, okay, maybe not controversy among the league itself, but among fans, a lot of people looked at it like, how, with Mahomes having the numbers he had. So the Twitter timeline is where the controversy really took place. But we'll get to that. I promise.
So I was saying Mahomes winning the Super Bowl obviously helped a lot. Defending Super Bowl champion and, one of the top quarterbacks of the past couple seasons. Like, I fully understand the hype for Mahomes.
Right.
And how old is he? Wait, he's only 2 years older than me. He's 24.
Oh, no, that makes me feel oh, man.
And how old is Lamar Jackson, Haley?
Oh, no. It's happening now. Before we get into that, I do want to look, with the Chiefs defending champions, which teams could step up and take that title away from them going into 2020? Which teams have set themselves up best to go and steal the Lombardi Trophy from Kansas City?
I'm always impressed year in and year out with the team that the Saints put up, and I know that they haven't actually in these past several years that something happens to them in the playoffs. Whether it was the offense, the pass interference penalty, or whether it was that last second touchdown by Minnesota. But I think the Saints are always a contender to do it. The Seahawks constantly build up that team. I've seen Russell Wilson go to work, and he's just absolutely incredible as well. And the defense has always been a strong suit of the Seahawks. And honestly, if we were talking playoff positioning, I do think the Chiefs are in a better position than the Ravens are, just because the Ravens haven't shown that experience just yet. But I'm thinking that the two teams that I'm really looking at as having the biggest threats of knocking off the Chiefs would have to be the two I mentioned, which would be the Seahawks and the Saints.
Okay. And Haley, what about you? Who do you see?
You know what, Drew? I'm going to agree with you on the Saints route just because Drew Brees is incredibly consistent. And I know he's actually getting older too, but he's still one of America's favorite quarterbacks. he's been in the news lately. Jeez, I hope he can recover from that and have a great season. But yeah, Drew, I agree with you for once.
All right, and
Wow.
the Drew Brees interesting coming up over the past couple of weeks. It has been reported that him and his teammates have had private closed-door talks trying to heal the locker room chemistry, which to me is surprising because I thought immediately just the first take I had was there's no coming back from this. But I'm happy I was wrong to see that they're working this over and smoothing it out, and that team could come back firing all cylinders. But the one team that I think we have all forgotten so far is the 49ers. Last year, 13-3, Garoppolo was shining bright. Kyle Shanahan's staff is looking intact going into next year. They're bringing a bunch of people back. I think the 49ers are a huge contender to go in there and have really big playoff success. I mean,
Garoppolo's
Go ahead.
Yeah, and that's fair because the Niners were a team that even throughout this entire season, I'll be honest, I did not take them seriously. They started out with one of the best records. A lot of that I'm just like, strength of schedule. And then they consistently kept winning. So, yeah, I have definitely overlooked the 49ers throughout this past season, and I'm fully prepared to do it again. No offense to them, but when I'm looking at my list, I've got teams like the Chiefs up there, and I've got the Saints up there, and they very well could go out and prove me wrong again.
What about the Cowboys? What do you guys think about the Cowboys this year?
They got rid of Jason Garrett. So that's already as big of a step as that franchise has made in years.
Yeah, but then they brought in Mike McCarthy.
I mean, McCarthy, didn't he win a Super Bowl?
Yeah, but he's coming off a kind of a tenuous relationship in Green Bay. And Dak's having weird contract negotiations. So we could have a great year in Dallas being led by Andy Dalton. Which,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, people forget Andy Dalton's a Dallas Cowboy now and could possibly be the starting quarterback depending on how the contract negotiations go with Prescott.
All these people are being thrown around. It's like shuffleboard.
It definitely has been one of the most wild NFL off seasons in a while.
And I think that's why people were so glued to the draft during all of this. Well, first of all, it's from Roger Goodell's basement. So, everybody's going to freak out about that. How interesting.
We're supposed to be on a boat.
Right.
We're supposed to row the draftees across a little lake in Vegas. And then it ended up in the basement. Like, how different sides of the spectrum can you get?
Wow.
It was interesting. I remember tuning into the draft because – and this is where my love for Andy Dalton comes from. I mentioned it before, Cincinnati fan. So I would love to see Andy Dalton be a starting quarterback in the league again. But now that we've kind of gone over the teams to compete, you mentioned the draft, just talking about some of the top rookies, and we're going to start with the highest top rookie, Joe Burrow, and where he sits amongst the NFL starting quarterbacks now. So, I mean, what do you think he can do in that first year of Cincinnati?
I don't think he's going to be holding a clipboard. That's for sure. I think they're going to throw him right on in there. And I'm curious to see how he will translate to the NFL. I really don't know. I don't have a read on him. Sometimes, the guys who win the Heisman, like Tim Tebow, did not translate super well to the end. Going to step up. I mean, the Bengals are so excited to have him. That's his home state. So already he's coming in with a lot of passion, and the Bengals right now are looking at spot 31 out of 32. And we all knew this. Like, we all knew they were going to draft Joe Burrow. But I'd really like to see him dig them out of that hole.
Right, and I just to build off of that with the Bengals had a really good draft where they got T. Higgins out of Clemson to pair really well with a hopefully fully healthy A.J. Green on the other side of the field. So Joe Burrow is going to have a lot of weapons to throw to, not to mention John Ross for the Bengals too, the speedster out of Washington. Drew, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think Burrow they're doing everything they can to set him up for success. I don't think it's going to happen this year. I'm looking at Kyler Murray, who was in a very similar situation last season, ended up winning Rookie of the Year, which I understand, and he had a pretty solid season. But the Cardinals didn't go anywhere. They were never a serious threat. I think they tied with the Lions, and that was just a weird game overall. Like, Kyler's a great quarterback, and he can continue to grow and be successful. successful, but he wasn't going to lead, like he was never set up to lead that team into a deep playoff run. And I think that's where Burrow is now. He's a great quarterback. He's better than Kyler, in my opinion. And I think they're doing everything they can to set him up. He's got some weapons that he can maybe work with. I don't see the Bengals making a deep run anytime soon. But give them 3-4 years, and I mean, who knows? This could end up being a very solid team if they take that rebuild approach seriously, continue to take it seriously, and just keep pushing at it.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't think they're going to be like showstoppers this year. I think they're going to climb a few steps.
Yeah.
Well, that's totally fair. What other teams who may have not performed as well last year could kind of show their stuff this year and prove that they drafted well and signed good free agents, and who can really step up this season? And Drew, if you want to start with this, because I think you got something to say. Because I've got something to say to start out with.
Yeah, I'll let you start.
Is the Colts. They had a decent year last year with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, but it always has slipped my mind every day since he went there that Phillip Rivers is an Indianapolis Colt. And I think with Phillip Rivers at quarterback for that team can kind of lead them with that veteran presence he has into becoming a pretty good playoff team.
Yeah, no, I'm very interested to see like what Phillip Rivers is able to do. He's got the experience, he's just not at winning so much like recently. Well, I mean, even then with the Chargers, he wasn't bad.
Right.
I don't know. He's very much a wild card with this team.
Yeah, and it's going to be nice for the Colts to have some consistency this year. I mean, last year, for all we knew, we thought Luck was going to play, and we thought that it was going to be a record season for the Colts. That was how it was set up, and that's what Indianapolis thought, and I think that's why they were so upset. We had Jacoby, who actually I thought he stepped up. I really did. Even though it was disappointing, it didn't really work out how everybody wanted it to do. He stepped up. I'm just excited for the Colts franchise to have more consistency. Let's keep Phillip Rivers safe. Don't injure him, because I don't know who would be the backup after that. Well, I guess Jacoby, because now he gets the clipboard this season.
Yeah. But in terms of teams that I think could take that next step, I don't know if this is fool's gold. It very well might be, but I'm still waiting on the Browns to finally like make that jump. I mean, I still remember I'm friends with a Browns fan. Well, I mean, with several, but I remember one in particular. That very first game that they didn't lose when they opened their season a couple years back, and they tied. It was like they ended their losing streak of like years long with a tie. And I still remember that moment as like, okay, this is going to be the start, but it might take a little bit. Team's not going to immediately start winning.
Right.
And this past season, they had several pieces. I know there was a huge bandwagon, which ended up being completely overhyped, but those pieces are still intact. They've got a developing defense as long as Myles Garrett stops assaulting people. And they've got a very good like offense in place. Baker's a good quarterback. Chubb ended up being a very quiet, like outstanding running back this past season. Landry, Odell Beckham, if Njoku gets healthy, they've got pieces there, and I think they could take that next step. Meanwhile, the team that's just at the bottom right now is the Washington Redskins. I'm not going to be confident in saying that they're going to that they're going to strongly improve, but I kind of hope it, because I remember Haskins last season just ranting to his offensive line as he couldn't get anything going. It seems like they're the next Browns. They're the ones ready to just go into shambles. But I think they have that opportunity now. They've got was it Young out of the draft?
Nick Young from Ohio State.
Yes, yeah, they've got Nick Young coming up. He's going to be just like the Bosa's, an immediate game changer. But I think this is going to be the year that determines whether the Redskins are going to be like the Browns and lose the next 30, 40 straight, or if they can actually start building some momentum this year.
I'm glad you brought up the Browns earlier, just because I was about to bring them up to talk about Baker Mayfield and can he perform better this year with Odell Beckham Jr. and Landry and that whole offense. So we've kind of gone over a quick preview, but I think it's time we get into what you two have been talking about for the longest time now. Haley will be representing Patrick Mahomes.
Of course.
Drew will be representing Louisville boy Lamar
What is
Jackson.
that? You brought, oh my gosh, you brought.
I had to break out the shirt.
He didn't even let me know he had that. But,
No.
So this will kind of be just it'll be the debate you all have been waiting for. Who would like to start in saying why their quarterback is better?
Drew, since you're going to lose, I'll let you go first.
Oh. All right. I appreciate the offer. Don't appreciate the sentiment. But I'll clarify what I said, or rehash what I said originally. Is Lamar's just the second player in NFL history to win a unanimous MVP. I understand that fans thought whatever, but these guys are the experts. And also, full respect to Patrick Mahomes. He leads his team to a Super Bowl. That's great. That tends to have a little bit of bias in it. I remember, I think it was the 2014 San Francisco Giants. People were saying Madison Bumgarner should win a Cy Young or MVP when he was like the 20th best pitcher that year. Now, Mahomes was better than the 20th best quarterback, but he wasn't the best. Lamar was the best, and I've got the stats to back it up. Last year, Lamar Jackson led all quarterbacks in overall yards. He let a lot of rushing in there. But if you don't trust his arm, just look at how he led all quarterbacks in passing touchdowns. If you don't trust his skill, he led all quarterbacks in QB rating. And on top of that, he was sixth in total rushing yards. Not out of all quarterbacks, out of everyone. He outrushed every running back in the league other than the 5 elite running backs. He was better than every quarterback, and he was better than all but 5 running backs, not as a running back. Your turn.
Your term. End sentence. All right. Yes, I think Lamar Jackson's great, Drew. I really do. He's great. You've got a great argument. But this is a big old but. So need I say, I have it right in front of me. Mahomes, this was last season, okay? Last season, averaged 4,564 yards, 38 touchdowns, 38, and only 8.5 interceptions. Oh my goodness. And I think that when I argue for Mahomes, I can understand why people are not too sure about him yet, because he's young. He's 24, and this is going to be his fourth season coming up? Fourth season, I believe.
Yeah.
If you take a look, what I'd like to do is I like to compare Mahomes with the best of the best quarterbacks. I think that's the most interesting thing to do. And I've done it with Brady, and I've argued and fought people about it over and over. So if you put Mahomes' stats next to Brady's, they're actually very similar. If you look at Brady as a 24-year-old up and coming, stats are very neck and neck. And then also, for some reason, I just think Mahomes has this it factor. There can be good athletes, but Mahomes has something a little bit more special. I mean, he graduated from Texas Tech. He actually played baseball for a couple of years before he really decided to take the NFL seriously. And his dad was a professional MLB pitcher, I want to say. So he's got that athletic gene in him. I think something that is very striking to other teams is the no-look pass. Come on. You got to admire the no-look pass. Like, who does that? He's able to control the ball. He can see the entire field. And he's just a player that doesn't come by very often. I think Joe Burrow's fantastic, but I don't think he's going to be a Patrick Mahomes. Who knows?
I'll agree.
Okay, well.
We'll see. Yeah.
That's fair.
But he's good, and he is going to lead the Chiefs to have a great season. And the Chiefs, honestly, 3-4 years ago weren't even on my radar. I didn't even give the Chiefs any airtime. And that's why I'm such a fan of the organization now, because of the respect that Patrick Mahomes has given that city. He's really brought the team together and, given Andy Reid a Super Bowl title, which is super exciting. And, able to dethrone the Patriots, like, come on, like, beat the Patriots. That's insane. That's insane. And I think they're going to be able to do it again. He's got weapons this year, and he's a weapon himself.
No, he definitely is a weapon. I do want to point out, I believe it was the Titans that dethroned the Patriots, and then it wasn't even the Chiefs that dethroned the Titans. So the Chiefs had a great run, but they didn't necessarily dethrone the Patriots. Lamar Jackson did beat the Patriots. You know what else Lamar Jackson has done? Because you pointed out Mahomes is, he's one of the best, and he's just like some of these other elite guys. But one of the things that I love about Lamar Jackson, and in all seriousness, this is something that, I followed him through college, being from Louisville, and I've loved in the NFL, is that he's not like anyone else. He's so unique. Obviously there's that big story about several coaches wanted him to convert to a wide receiver. He was adamant he wanted to be a quarterback. He turned out to be the best quarterback in the league last year. And it's his ability to not only pass, but to run and just to make his team better in general. And like Patrick Mahomes, he makes his team better. That's great. But he makes his team better in the same way that Aaron Rodgers makes his team better. He just keeps throwing the ball and people catch it. But with Lamar Jackson, his ability to run, his ability to read the field, and his ability to lift his whole team up, I was looking at the weapons that Patrick Mahomes has. Patrick Mahomes can throw Tyreek Hill, who I've lost my number, but Tyreek Hill is, I believe, a four-time Pro Bowler. He has the ability to throw to Travis Kelce, a 5-time Pro Bowler. Mm-hmm. Watkins has been very decent when he's healthy. You know what Lamar Jackson had last season? He had Mark Andrews and Nick Boyle, 2 tight ends no one had ever heard of. He had Willie Snead, who was half decent for half a season. Drew Brees. Rookie wide receivers, Boykins and Hollywood Brown, which I like both of those guys, but they're not Tyreek Hill. They are not Travis Kelce. And not to mention that above that, his ability to just throw defenses off with his ability to throw, his ability to run, it allows his other teammates to be able to do some work as well. Mark Ingram ended up being a top 15 back last season, and the guy's 30 years old. Mm-hmm. And Gus Edwards, the secondary back, ended up being top 30 that season. They had 2 backs in the top 30, and that's on a team where Lamar Jackson led the entire league in yards. So there were plenty of yards to go around. He had more than anyone in the league, and he still was able to build up the rest of his team. And that's what I love about Lamar Jackson, is his uniqueness and his ability to just keep elevating everything around him.
So you're saying that Patrick Mahomes had more weapons. You're saying that he had more of an athletic team, a team with more talent, and you're saying that Lamar Jackson had a little more digging to do, a little more work to be able to succeed. Is that what you're saying?
I think so, but I'm afraid at your tone, so I don't know where you're going.
No, I agree, Drew. I really do. I agree. I think if there was an award for team who did the best that they could with what they had, I think that would be Lamar Jackson, hands down. He's the best player on the roster, and he's the most important. And I know most QBs are for their team, but exactly. especially in his situation, I will give that to you. Like the Chiefs, he does have players. Mahomes does have players to work with. And I do admire that Jackson was able to kind of figure out his own way, because I know that's difficult. And I think that's what makes the Patriots so good, so good in the past. I don't know about anymore.
Yeah.
Such good players, and they had such good weapons. Like how good would they have if they didn't have half the wide receivers that they had, or half, of the O-line they had? Like, you just don't know. So, yeah, Lamar Jackson carried the team. I'll give you that, Drew. But Mahomes is still better.
See, and
I think Lamar had the better season with the worst circumstances, and I think he will continue to have greater seasons as this goes on. Mahomes is incredible. He's elite. All due respect to him, I think he will continue to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league for the next 10 years. Right. I think Lamar will be the best quarterback in the league.
All right.
So what this has illuminated for me as having no horse in this race is Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league when he's throwing the ball and can't be beat doing that. But when it comes to a rushing quarterback, Lamar is unequivocally the best there. And it's just whatever style you prefer watching or whoever you are a fan of. I mean, either way, they're both – to me, they're the top 2 in the league. It's no question. And whichever way you want to order them, up to you guys. But I think that was a good debate, regardless of nobody coming or switching their minds. I don't
think you're getting either of us switching.
No, but you know what? CBS does have them as top 2, so you're very right. I think most of America would agree. So at least we're arguing top 2. It's
right.
pretty neck and neck.
It's not like we're trying to argue Joe Burrow or anything, Jackson.
Yeah.
I thought about trying to get Joe Burrow in there, but it's just like he hasn't played a game yet. I would just look dumb. But, hey, who knows? Maybe he'll be number 3 in this race soon.
He
He's
could.
the best LSU quarterback of the three that we've mentioned.
There you
Yeah,
go.
right.
There you go. Fighting chance.
It is pretty neat that both of these quarterbacks, Lamar will be going into his third full and Patrick into his fourth full season. So we'll get to have this debate for years to come, potentially.
Yeah, and I do want to point out they're very similar. They've had very similar arcs already. As Patrick Mahomes, as you mentioned, 24 years old. His first full season as the starting quarterback, he won the MVP. And then his second season, he went on to win the Super Bowl. Lamar right behind him at 23 years old. His first season taking over as the full-time quarterback, went on to win an MVP. And the Ravens are a great team once again. I personally don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl this year, this upcoming season. But, they've got as good a shot of any.
Well, if we use your logic, Mahomes winning MVP, getting Madden cover, and then winning the Super Bowl will now parlay into Lamar getting MVP, getting on the Madden cover as announced today, and then who knows, maybe another Ravens Super Bowl. But once again, a really great debate. And now we get to debate something else, and my favorite part is football movies. And Haley, as our guest, I would like you to start with your first three football movies in our big old bracket tournament.
All right, here we go. Number one, without hesitation, is Remember the Titans. So good. So good. And I am ashamed to say that I did not lay eyes on that movie until this year. I know, it's horrible. It's horrible. And I was watching it the whole time and was thinking, this movie is just so good. It might even be my favorite movie, not just football movie, but favorite movie of all time. And my second one that I really like, not a movie, but I love QB1. And the reason why I love QB1, I've seen all 3 seasons. The reason why I love QB1 is because it focuses on the journey to the NFL. And a lot of the guys that they have covered on QB1 are now in the NFL, like Jake Fromm. And then you have a couple other good ones like Justin Fields. They know that they're going to be supreme and elite athletes even from when they're in high school. And I think it's really nice to follow that journey because as college students, we tend to focus on collegiate athletes or we tend to look at NFL athletes. Hardly ever do I ever pay attention to high schoolers. And so I think that's a really interesting show to kind of educate us about that. And then the third one, this one, a little controversial, but I really do like The Blind Side. I think that's a really good movie, but I did read that the real Michael Orr actually wished The Blind Side would not have been made because they just kind of put him in a false light. They made it seem like he didn't know football, even though he did know football. They made him seem not as intelligent as he was. And I think that was the problem with the movie. But all in all, it's a good story about a dark horse that comes out on top and eventually, plays for college. So I love that one too.
Yeah, my list is pretty similar. Sorry, I just sort of took over. I'm going into my list now.
Go into it. Let's see.
Yeah, my number one is definitely Remember the Titans. As you said, it's one of my favorite movies as well. Not just sports movies, but one of my favorite movies, period. And I've sat and sort of evaluated like my favorite movies, and in terms of overall quality, Remember the Titans is the best. I think it is the highest quality movie on my list of favorites. One of the best movies that I've ever seen. It's a great story, great acting, great action. It's a nearly perfect movie, and fully recommend it to anyone who hasn't seen it. Number two, I am going with The Blind Side, just because I think it's a great story. And yes, I've heard similarly, Haley, what you were saying, how Michael Orr didn't necessarily like how he's portrayed. I know that does happen in a lot of movies, and I think it's good to be able to understand that and to be able to recognize that. But from the perspective of the movie, I think regardless of how truthful it was, it tells an incredible story of, love, human compassion. It's a great sports tale. Sandra Bullock is in it. That's always a big piece of it. And Tim McGraw, I believe.
Interesting.
So is it Tim McGraw? It's a big country singer. I'm not exactly sure if it's McGraw, but there's a major country singer who plays Sandra Bullock's husband. But yeah, it's a great movie. It's uplifting. It's full of love. It's full of fun football, and I love that.
It is Tim McGraw, by the way.
There we go. And then number three, I went on a slightly different route. I like looking at sort of the analytical aspects of it, and I saw this movie a few years ago, and I've seen it as the equivalent, the football version of baseball's Moneyball, and that is Draft Day. And it's a story of the Browns. It's not true. It's a fictional movie, but it's a fictional telling of the Browns and the general manager who takes over the team. He's got a ton of pressure on his back, all sorts of people coming at him from different ways, and it's him trying to navigate the days leading up to and eventually the NFL draft and try and put together the best team he can. It's a great movie. There's a great cast, and I know it seems a little weird to sit down and try and watch like an analytical movie like about the general manager of a football team, but it's really well done, and it's another one of those things where I feel like the theme with a lot of these football movies, you really get the human element of it, and I absolutely love that. And then I will throw out one honorable mention just because I feel like we at least have to name it, is We Are Marshall. That's an uplifting movie, although very sad. Probably like the saddest opening to a movie you can get.
Oh boy, Drew.
But I at least had to mention it.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned it because that's my number 3 is We Are Marshall.
Okay.
It's just so sad, but so good.
Yeah.
Just a great movie. And then since we already talked about We Are Marshall, I'll move into my number 2, which I keep going back and forth, but I think it's got to be Brian's Song, which it's an older movie from the 70s, but it's about Gale Sayers on the Chicago Bears, true story, and his best friend who also plays for the team, Brian Piccolo, and Piccolo gets cancer. It's just a very sad football movie, but like it's really good, and it's a very true story. Gale Sayers, one of the best players of all time. Great movie. I highly recommend it. And then number 1 for me, and I kind of grew up on this movie around high school football, especially where I'm from, Friday Night Lights. And the show is great too, don't get me wrong, but the original movie from 2004, it cannot be beat. It is one of the best football movies of all time, one of the best sports movies of all time. There's just something about high school football in Texas and the South. It's really weird. But yeah, definitely Friday Night Lights. And then I couldn't put this in my top 3, but it has to be an honorable mention. It's I can't remember what year it came out, but it's a Disney movie with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson called The Game Plan.
Oh yeah, with Madison Pettis. Yeah.
Right. And basically Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, star football player, NFL, every award possible. Turns out he has a daughter, and now he has to take care of her. And there's just something about it that's endearing. It's a really, really good, sweet movie. Easy to watch, good ending. I highly recommend that one as well.
That's a very strong honorable mention.
Oh yeah. And to add to our list of all-time movies, now we go into the selection process for the final 3. I feel like we can add what movie did you both have?
We both had Remember the Titans and Blindside.
Blindside, yeah.
Oh, okay. Let's put Remember the Titans on there for sure.
Yep.
And then who else? I'm thinking we put We Are Marshall there.
Yeah, you both had those. Yeah, I'd say throw that in there too.
Yeah.
Then the third spot, since you all both had it, could be Blindside, but is there any other movie from your 2 that you would like to put on there?
No,
I think
it's good.
Yeah, I think I'm comfortable with Blindside, We Are Marshall, Remember the Titans. I think those are sort of the 3 pinnacle football movies that I think of anyways.
Okay.
One we haven't mentioned is like Rudy. I just feel like we at least needed to say it at some point in the episode, so I said the name, we can move on.
That's very fair.
Yeah, but I think those 3 are what I think of as like the pinnacle football movies.
All right, and I will write this down. I have written them all down now. I have them
There we
all.
go. Finally. It only took
for
us
the big
like
tournament. Yeah. I'm not going to list all the 12 movies that we have, but we are going to be adding We Are Marshall, Remember the Titans, and Blindside. So there we go. Haley, thank you so much for coming on and taking some time out of your afternoon. It was a pleasure having you.
Thanks for arguing with me. I love it.
Of course. I like that we haven't declared a winner just so neither of us leaves upset.
Yes.
But we can discuss that later.
It'll be great this fall when sports are coming back, and I'll still be listening to you two having this debate. I'm so sure.
You will. It will never end.
Nope.
Which, you know what? I'm fine with it. It's very entertaining. Drew, is there any last things you want to say?
No, I think it's a lot of fun. I'm glad that we're able to talk football and that at least they're able to have like a relatively normal off season. It's a very nice change from a lot of the chaos that's been going on.
Right. Well, once again, thank you for watching. Haley, once again, thank you. We'll be back Friday with a new episode. Stay tuned for that, and thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.